Hi guys, welcome to another episode of What's the One Thing? Let's get started with the question. How to become confident on every horse again? I had an accident on a young horse a couple of years ago. I'm riding full time but have in the back of my mind that fall which is holding me back from getting out there and doing more, especially with the young horses. I really feel for you because this can be such a frustrating dynamic to negotiate. The reason that I say dynamic is there are two parts that really need to be addressed when it comes to returning from injury or any kind of traumatic event. That is the somatic experience or the felt sense that we have and the thought-based processes or the anticipation anxiety that typically arises. In practical terms, that might look like you standing in front of your young horse and you may have a thought process which feels quite concerned or worried, or you might have thoughts which are actually saying this is completely illogical, there is no reason for you to feel this way, you're actually safe, but the feeling that you have is in opposition to that. Now, the reason for that is what you're experiencing on a somatic or on a physical level is the residue of trauma. Basically, your nervous system gets stuck on a dial, and it's just like a song getting stuck on an album and repeating itself over and over. When we're in emotional flow or when we're in a situation which is easeful and we're able to move through whatever it is that's presented to us and there's no traumatic memory associated with that event, then we move from one song to the next. But in the case of trauma, we get stuck on the chorus of one song, and that comes about as a result of a trigger that has caused our nervous system to respond in a specific way. Now for you, just taking what you've written from your question, this would be riding a young horse. So when you're presented with that young horse, that is for whatever reason a trigger for your nervous system to respond in a specific way as a consequence of the injury that you had in the past. Now we know that this response that you're experiencing is not necessarily true for the moment. It is a residual response of something that's happened previously. So we need to make sure that we're doing the work to repattern that and to provide your nervous system with a corrective experience so that you can negotiate those feelings and allow yourself to basically press reset. The course of action that we take to do that is outside the scope of what we're going to cover over the next couple of minutes. So what I want to discuss with you now is two things. First up, I'm really interested in the statement that you used to open this question. How to become confident on every horse again? To my mind, it's not so much about developing confidence in the horses as it is about developing confidence and trust in ourselves again. And that's something that trauma and injury typically robs us of. We want to develop trust in the skills that we have. We want to develop trust that we're able to negotiate the emotional territory that we're now finding ourselves in, and trust that we need and can do whatever we need to do to be able to create a safe and happy experience for both ourselves and our horses. That trust comes through consistent action. Something that I find super helpful when working with young horses or navigating a situation where I might feel a little bit apprehensive is reminding myself that I only need to go as far as the next good step. Getting into that anticipation anxiety place or feeling overwhelmed by your feelings often comes by projecting ourselves to a future space where we're imagining the worst case scenario coming to life. If you can detach yourself from that or uncouple your thought process from that space and bring it back into the present moment and ask yourself, what is the next thing that I have to do? And then you do that thing. Now, the thing that you can comfort yourself with is this knowledge that you don't have to go past that stage if that stage isn't good. For example, when I'm working with my young horse, I start on the ground, and if the groundwork is satisfactory to me, then I know that I can progress to the next stage. That might look like us lining up at the mounting block and me putting weight in the stirrup and maybe lying across his back a little bit. And if he's good with that, then I would go to get on. Now, if he wasn't good with any of those stages, I wouldn't progress to that next step. And what that does is keep me in both a physical and psychological space that maximizes the safety of both myself and my horse. It's also a really comforting framework to operate from. If I continually tell myself that I don't have to go any further than the next good step, then I pay attention to what it is that I need to do in the moment. I understand that there's no requirement for me to go any further than I'm comfortable doing. And by the time I get to the thing that potentially I'm concerned about, that concern has evaporated because I've taken care of everything that needed to be taken care of prior to that position or prior to that step coming to life. I don't want to diminish your experience because I understand just how powerful that resonant effect of trauma and injury can be. And if that's something that you want to dive into, I have a whole program on that in my online program Joyride that I can absolutely go through with you. But for the sake of expressing one thing to you, I would say only go as far as the next good step and use that as your modus operandi moving forward until you find the skills that you need to find in order to get yourself back to a better feeling space.